Okay, welcome everyone to our very first Wine Wednesday. I hope you have your wine or some type of libation. We have a great group here tonight. I'm so excited we could all get together. I would like to go ahead and start sharing my screen and welcome everyone. So this is our first Wine Wednesday. We're going to make this a quarterly event. We expect our next one will be somewhere in June, July, something like that. So please encourage your friends and family to attend to find out what's going on with the league. Tonight, we're going to start out with a message from Fran Wagner, who of course is our president. Probably the most exciting part people are interested in is the legislative update. There's been quite some entertainment from the legislatures this year. Then, being an election year, we're going to hear from Wida and hopefully Lauren, if she can make it, about 411. And then we'll find out what everyone's doing around the state by looking at local chapters. So Fran, if you could go ahead and get us started and welcome us, that would be fantastic.
Well, thank you so much, Soroya. I'm very pleased to do that, and welcome everybody. I'm so pleased you're here with us. This is, I think, a great idea that the Communications Committee had, and a way for us to stay in touch and kind of informally, in a fun way, find out what's going on. I'm going to just mention a couple of things to start us off. First of all, I'm very excited about the league right now. We really are at a transformational moment. I don't think that's too strong to say. We have two things going on that are really have the power and the possibility of taking us to another level. One is that we've just brought on board some administrative assistants. We really haven't had any. We had Melissa for a little while, but we lost her, and we're all working, the board's all working hard, but we're spending a lot of time doing administrative tasks. And so we have hired a dynamic young woman named Amanda Riley. She runs her own little business called On the Ball Service. And she's going to do bookkeeping for us and help us with communications and membership. So that's big. The other thing is we're in the midst right now of working on a grant proposal that National League is offering. And it's for democracy voting issues, which right up our alley. I mean, that's what we're all about. We haven't determined exactly what we're going to ask for. That doesn't mean we'll get it, of course, but it's probably going to be in the vicinity of 20,000. So that could be an enormous boost to some of our voting education and our voter services, and restoring voting rights to people convicted of a felony, all of those things that we're really engaged in. And this could really, we could really up our game. So those two things are in the works. And I think really do, as I said, have the power to take us to another level. So the other thing that I'll mention, and before turning it back to Soroya, I hope everybody will mark their calendars for June 11th. That's going to be our annual meeting. We used to call it convention, but we changed our bylaws last year, you may remember, and now we just have an annual meeting every year. But we're going to be doing a lot of exciting things and important things on June 11th. It's going to be virtual, so everybody can have access to it. So that's a Saturday. So with that, Soroya, introduction, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Fran. It is a very exciting time for our league. For those who've joined just after we got started, please be sure and put your name and where you're from in our chat. Now we're going to go to Cindy Heine and Mary Jo Rogers to give us an update on this past legislative session. I keep calling it season. It's a session.
Thank you, Soraya. Mary Jo and I are your legislative liaisons in Frankfurt, and Mary Jo's going to start us off. I need you to stop screen sharing so I can share.
You should be able to, whether
Right.
I've given you permission to do that.
Well, I got a funny little message there that said, all right, so let's see if this gets started. So here we are. Mary Jo, do you want to get us started?
I certainly will. My part is to talk to you about the process of the league and how we worked this legislative session. We've made a few little changes from the last session. If this sounds like a recruitment kind of dialogue, you're right. We're always looking for more members for the Legislative Review Committee. The session was 60 days, and they had their 10-day veto period, and of course that's now all over. And so what we took a look at is the legislative session, they're over, but they will meet all summer. The legislature will in committee, and they will be working on bills to put forth. And they put them in as pre-filed bills early if they want to, and they start in the summer and put them in the fall. Cindy and I and anybody else we can grab takes a look at those pre-filed bills as much as we can, just because we want to know ideas of what some of the issues are going to be and give us a flavor for what's happening and who's going to do it. So then once the session starts, the bills go over and become real bills, real Senate and House bills. And so we take a look at these bills as they come along, and we have a committee that gets together. It's volunteer committee, and so we try to meet. This time we met every Friday and took a look at the bills that pertain to us, that were within the league's purview, and then assign them to people to read them, not just read the summary, but read the full bill and point out anything that is special and would be, maybe controversial. So the committees also helped us so much. The education committee had to read and read and read of all those education bills, and the environmental committee helped, and also the health committee. We asked for people to take a look at the bills, and then also to say make a recommendation on whether they support them or want to watch them or oppose them as a league. So we report back the next Friday. Everybody talks about what's going on with the bills. We update where we are with the bills, anything that's been passed or in committee. And then we go ahead and make a recommendation to the full board on what we think we should do with these bills, support or oppose or just watch them. So that's how we do it. Then we bring it to the board, and the board decides what they want to do with them. And then the membership hears from us, because we send out these wonderful contacts that say, please contact your legislator. Something actions is happening on this bill, and we very much want you to contact them and tell them that you're for or opposed to it. And I want to tell a big thank you to everybody who really did put in those phone calls and those emails. They really, really count. I call it the bread and butter of the league's effectiveness with the legislature. It depends on how many responses they get and who they're from. And so it's just very important. So all those action alerts that you get, they are very important. So that's it, Cindy.
Okay, I want to say one other thing on this page, and that is one of the things we were able to do this year for the first time is put up an ongoing weekly updated list of the bills that we supported and opposed. There's a program called Bill Track 50, and our good member from Northern Kentucky, Becky Jones, learned how to use that program. And so as we met and talked through bills, when we ended up having bills that we officially opposed or supported, she put them up online and we put them up on the website. And you can go and see that list anytime at lwvky.org. It's on the homepage right now. So feel free to go jump in and take a look. Just as an FYI, there were 1,165 bills filed this session. I cannot say that we read every one of them, but I did go through every single one to see what it was about and get a sense of whether it was something that we might be interested in. And then we referred those to the committees that helped look at them. Early in the session, actually before the session, we set our priorities. It's easy to get distracted by issues that are dear to the hearts of many of us, but we tried to focus on redistricting, restoring civil rights, voting and elections bills, education, and then a few others. And this is what happened. On redistricting, you know, they did this in the very first week of the session. We had advocated for an advisory commission, for an open and transparent process, and for public input. And what did the legislature do? They drew maps behind closed doors. They held no public hearings on their proposed maps, and they took no comments from voters. Although I have to express one caveat. We had talked to legislators, we've been talking to some folks in the House for quite a long time, and two members of the House told us they were going to have a listening tour. However, they told us that before they got permission to do it. And it turns out they did not have a listening tour. So there were a few people who were willing to go out and listen to the public, but the leadership said no. So no comments from the public, and then they adopted them in 5 days. The bills that we got were Senate Bill 2, House Bill 2, and Senate Bill 3. All of these maps created by this legislature will be used in the 2022 year for elections. So these maps will determine who our senators, House members, and congressional members are, where their lines are. The Senate districts that were passed will become law without the governor's signature. He did not veto that. So those lines are final. Those boundaries are firm. The House and the congressional district maps were both vetoed by the governor after they were passed, and both vetoes were overridden. And a lawsuit was filed challenging both of those maps. So even though those maps are in place for the 2022 elections, should the courts overrule them and they have to be redrawn, they could change in another year or two. But right now, that's what we have. And what we do have, and one of the reasons that we're in court, is because of the congressional map. This is a very gerrymandered map that makes no sense. The congressman from the 1st district has a home down here in South Central Kentucky, but he and his family live in Frankfort. And so they very conveniently arranged to move his district up so that he could live in his own district. The other thing, of course, that did is it weakened the 6th district. The 6th district has been a fairly progressive district, but the more rural counties you can add to it, the more conservative voters you add to it. And so this helps strengthen the 6th district for the Conservative Party. We think this is an embarrassment, and we think it ought to be changed, and we hope the courts think so too. Second big issue for us was restoration of voting rights. As you know, if you have a felony conviction in this state, you lose your civil rights. Those rights cannot be restored without a pardon by the governor or an expungement. Right now, 198,000 Kentucky men and women cannot vote, despite the fact that the governor in December of 2019 issued an executive order that pardoned close to 200,000 people. What we know is that every governor has their own goals around this issue. Some are generous in pardoning, others are stingy. We don't want to have to rely on a governor. We need a permanent fix. So our goal is to amend the Constitution to automatically restore voting rights once sentences are complete. Now, in this session, unfortunately, we did not get much movement on a bill. We thought we had a sponsor and that fell through. Senator Gerald Neal, however, did sponsor Senate Bill 223, and we worked on that. It had bipartisan support, which is very positive. So Senators McGarvey, Harper, Angel, and Thomas, who are Democrats, and Higdon, Hornbeck, and Smith, who are Republicans, signed on as co-sponsors. That's a good thing. That bill called for a constitutional amendment that would automatically restore voting rights on completion of sentence, and other rights such as being able to serve on a jury and run for public office and have a gun are restored after 3 years. The only exceptions to this rule in this bill were treason, bribery in an election, or election fraud. Now, this bill did not get a hearing. We worked hard to make that happen and it didn't. A committee chair agreed to hear it, but the leadership didn't want it heard, and so they sent it to another committee. They didn't send it to his committee. And as we worked with legislators to find co-sponsors, we were promised a hearing during the interim session, and we will be working on that because that will be our priority for next year. In terms of education bills, the bills that are in green are ones that we supported that passed. So these are pluses. We supported expanding preschool for more children. That did not happen. We supported full funding, all-day funding for kindergarten, and that did pass. That is in the budget, and we're pleased with that. We supported prohibiting corporal punishment in schools, got nowhere. We supported the Crown Act, which was a bill that would prohibit discrimination for students based on their hairstyles. House Bill 31 did get a hearing in one committee. Every step is a good one, but it obviously didn't pass. And then there was a late bill that would have allowed Key Scholarship use for persons with some with convictions. Folks who come out of jail and need to find a job and build skills need those scholarship dollars to help them get into proprietary or community technical colleges or college. That bill passed, but the governor vetoed it this week, saying there were some technical problems and he hopes they will bring it back, cleaning those up next time. We think that's an important bill. Education bills that we opposed, the charter school, House Bill 9, charter school funding and tax credit for vouchers. That bill passed. There was a lot of effort, though, to make it pass. It just barely passed by one vote the first time around. And in order to get it to pass, they had to take out the tax credit for vouchers section. That was a good thing. But it did pass on the first vote. The governor vetoed it, but it was overridden on when it came back to the Senate. The first vote on overriding failed, and so they brought it back the next day. There's a process that if you don't like the vote on a bill, you can bring it back later. You suspend a bunch of rules and you can vote on it again. And so they brought it back the second day and they overrid it by, they were able to override that bill. So that did pass. There were a couple of bills that added to the amount of money that could have been used for tax credits for voucher programs. Those bills saw no action. So we think that the legislature is getting the word that the voters are not interested in voucher programs. We'll see what happens in future sessions. There were several horrible bills on that came about as a result of critical race theory concerns. House Bill 14, House Bill 18, and House Bill 487. They were really bad bills, saying what teachers could not do. They were very confusing. Fortunately, somebody in leadership saw that this was not a wise thing to do. These bills did not get a hearing, and last minute attempts to add them as amendments to other bills failed. So that was good. However, Senate Bill 138, which was sponsored by Senator Wise and Education Committee Chair, I think was an effort to detract from these other bad bills. And it provides for what schools have to do, not what they can't do. It did not pass. It did get hearings, and it ended up being attached to Senate Bill 1, which was moving very quickly through the chambers. Senate Bill 1 removes authority from school councils, and it also at the last minute got an amendment that placed limits on the Jefferson County School Board, limiting how often they can meet and limiting some of the things that they can do. That bill ended up as Senate Bill 1 with Senate Bill 138 on it, did pass. It was vetoed, but it was overridden. So that is now law. And that's going to be interesting to watch. Voting in elections bills, there were several filed that we supported that did not get any traction. House Bill 68, which would have extended voting hours to 7 p.m., same-day voter registration and expansion of no excuse early voting and no excuse absentee voting, those got no action. But House Bill 564 did pass. It has a number of measures. The one that we support most highly is it does allow 6 days of early excused voting. You can go to the county clerk's office 6 days prior to the 3 days of excused early, of no excuse early voting. So there'll be almost 2 weeks of time when people can vote early if they can't get to the polls those 3 days before and or on election day. Other bills that we supported and passed, water and wastewater management plan and funding in House Bill 758. Nikki Chambers was our environmental chair, and she reviewed that bill and said we should support it, and we did, and it did pass. Another bill that came through that we supported because we have a strong policy on it was a death penalty that is prohibited for persons with a diagnosed mental illness. That did pass, and it was signed. A couple of bills came along that we opposed. One was changes to the SNAP and Medicaid programs, the application process, making it much more difficult for folks who are in need to get the supports that they needed. That was vetoed and it was overridden. And then the tax reform bill, House Bill 8, that bill is aimed at moving us to a system with no personal income tax like Tennessee and Kansas, other states, and instead replace those funds with an increase in property taxes or an increase in the kinds of things that are taxed in sales tax. I'm sorry, not property, sales tax. So changing the income from income tax to a sales tax or other taxes. Now, there was a lot of effort to add gaming and some things that would bring in revenue. Those bills didn't go anywhere. They didn't pass. A lot of work on them. There's strong support in both parties for them, but the leadership kind of held back on those, and those didn't happen. We supported a couple of things, or we were interested in a couple of things that we didn't have official positions on. One was a very comprehensive child welfare bill, Senate Bill 8. That was sponsored by Senator Julie Rocky Adams with a lot of bipartisan support. Very comprehensive, long bill that she worked long and hard on, and that did pass. And then the library bill, even though we didn't officially oppose it, I think we all are very concerned about our libraries. And that bill ended up passing. It was vetoed, and the veto was overridden. So that bill has passed, and we need to watch that closely to be sure that there isn't a creeping of more bad things happening to our libraries. Couple of observations from this session, things that are a little different from the past and some that aren't so different. There was limited opportunity for public scrutiny and public input. There is a rule that provides that every bill, after it's been assigned to committee and is heard in committee, has to have 3 readings before it goes to the floor. There's actually no time limit on that. So what the legislature did was, in many, many cases, they had the readings all set. Then they took the bill to a committee. It was heard in committee, but the bill, of course, wasn't quite satisfactory. It needed some amendments. So a committee substitute was brought out. Nobody but the legislators had seen it. They would pass it in the morning in committee, and because it had its 3 readings, it went straight to the House or the Senate that afternoon and got passed before the public had a chance to even read the bill. That is not the way democracy should work. And they are using that as common everyday practice, which is something we need to fuss about. There was limited testimony if somebody wanted to speak against a bill. And our own Verna Cahoon, chair of our education committee, experienced this. There is very limited time. They give plenty of time to the people who support the bill. And then all of a sudden they've got 10 or 15 minutes left. There's a lineup of people who want to speak, and they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, you're going to get a minute to speak. And by the way, would you speak to the committee substitute? Well, of course, you prepare your remarks. You don't know what the committee substitute says. There's no way you can do that. That is totally inappropriate. So that's been frustrating for us. And then one of the other things that happened this year, in the past 2 years, the House and Senate both have allowed virtual testimony. So you could testify from home if you were concerned about COVID. This year, the Senate just decided, we're not going to do that. So you had to drive to Frankfurt, hope you didn't get COVID while you were there, if you were willing to go and testify. And then if you were lucky, you might have had a minute to speak. So that was frustrating to us. A couple of other changes in the way the bills are filed. All bills no longer have to go to committees. It used to be every bill was assigned to a committee. Now the leadership decides what bills go to committee. So they basically get to decide what bills are heard and what bills have any chance of passing. And then they frequently suspended the rules. That's a common thing to do when you've got a majority of people in the House and Senate chambers. You can easily get the votes to override the rules, suspend the rules, and do whatever you want. The other thing that happened that I noticed in a number of bills that is of concern to me is frequently in these bills, especially these emotional bills, like the Riot Act that fortunately didn't pass, and the Senate House Bill 14 and 18, those bills on what we teach in our schools. They added penalties if people didn't comply by those rules. So often there were misdemeanors, felony convictions even, and fines. We think this is all because of the influence of ALEC, which is a national conservative organization. It's the American Legislative Exchange Council. They get together with legislators across the country and they propose bills, and you see the same language in bills all across the country. I had a conversation with members of the National League of Women Voters legislative team, and they shared some bills that had very similar language that were in other states that we saw here in Kentucky. There's a frequent use also of emergency clauses. Normally bills are passed, the session ends in April, and 90 days later, these bills go into effect. Lots and lots of these bills put emergency clauses on them, meaning that they are in effect the minute they are signed. That makes it very difficult for implementation. So for the cabinet, for the Department of Education, for the executive branch, when they've got rules that they have to follow, they have no time to prepare for those, prepare the paperwork, prepare the processes. And I just think that's a bad precedent. And then one other just interesting thing, 140 of the 1,100 so bills were what we call mule bills. They were bills that are placeholders that if you were interested in education and you didn't have your bill ready to file by the filing deadline, and there's a deadline for bills to be filed, then you could file this mule bill, and then you could add a committee substitute or an amendment to it and pass anything after that filing deadline. Not a lot of them were used, but I was just amazed to see how many of those bills were filed. And I just have to put in a quick word about Becky. I'm not sure I mentioned how Becky helped us, but with the bill track 50, she could list those bills, and then we could watch them very closely to see if somebody pulled one up and added an amendment to it. Becky figured out that bill track 50, she mastered it. It was just great. And that was helpful in following those bills, because you want to know if those bills pass, because oftentimes what's on them is not a good thing. What can you do between now and the next session? Get to know your legislators. Some of you have new legislators. Your House or Senate districts have changed. Get to know them, go meet with them if you can. Let them know who you are. Talk about the issues you care about. Please, if you meet with them, mention the automatic restoration of voting rights. Ask them to support legislation that would do that. People deserve a second chance. And we think it's time for that, that section of the Constitution to be amended. And then the other thing we want to push on, and we're thinking 10 years ahead now, the redistricting process was done behind closed doors. There was no public input. The Congressional District 1 is an embarrassment for Kentucky. We need a better process. We want to harp on them for the next 8 years about what a lousy process we had, and we need something better. So we'll hope that we can all be working on that. And then finally, resources. You can go and look at the list of bills on our website. You can get bill summaries. If you keep clicking, you can actually get the language of the bill as well as the summary. You can see the actions that were taken. You can see who voted for it and who didn't, and who abstained, and a lot more. And then follow Outreach Circle, because that's a wonderful way to keep track of what's happening with the State League. And then, as Mary Jo mentioned, this is an ad for getting more people on our legislative team next year. So give us a call or drop us a line at info@lwvky.org, and we'll get you on our team. And thank you for every single call you made this year. We appreciate everybody's help out there. One last thing, Soraya. I know I had to go very fast on this. I'm going to compile this list of these pieces of information and put it into a report for the board. And we'll put that up on our next Kentucky Voter. We'll make it available to people if you want to go back and look at it or refer back to it.
And if you wouldn't mind to send me these slides, I'll put them with our slide deck.
I will do that.
We will send out to everybody after the call for folks who didn't get to come today.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you all for all your hard work, Cindy. I know how much you and Mary Jo and the rest of the folks did. It was really amazing. Now, turning to WIDA, and I'm not sure if Lauren was able to make it or not, but we're going to find out how we can perhaps get different legislators. So WIDA, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and just let me know when you want me to advance your slides.
Great, thank you very much. And you can hear me okay?
Yes, great.
Okay, good. I've got 2 minutes to do this. I will stick to that, but if you've got a question, stick it in the chat. Here I'm talking to you from the belly of the Vote 411 whale. This is Vote 411, and they prefer the branding of just Vote 411, not .org, .com, but all those will go to the interactive voting site. So they've been in the middle of a revamp. The Kentucky League of Women Voters has decided to really invest in this. it's you know, the software, the servers, the people to run it, all take a lot of effort. So even when from our end we do volunteer work, it's expensive. So the board of the state league allocated $2,500, which is the cost for covering the state races, and Vote 411 threw in all the judicial races, which aren't normally included. So that was great. And then the League of Women Voters of Lexington kicked in $300, because it's $200 to $300 per locality or local league to get their area covered. And they threw in Bowling Green for free. So we're like nestling under Lexington for the, you know, this first experiment here. And I'll just say, there's lots of room for additional local league participation. So be very mindful of that. So the whole thing is set up so that people can go in and put in their address and search for what they've got. And the reason that works is because we fed the system a whole bunch of GIS files. So it works. And they also have a lot of additional voter information. That was 2 minutes.
Let's go ahead and keep going. We've got
Fast as
folks.
this. Next. So they have a bunch of additional voter information. Go ahead, Sarah. These are the races that we were able to put up. These, I'll let you just read that, the statewide races, the judiciary races, and then the local races. We've already got up as many, and then go ahead and click the next one. We've already got up as many, nope, yep, they're perfect. We've got as many statewide and judiciary races as they're already sort of entered for data as there will be in the primary and general. But the local races can expand. Plus, there are a whole lot of local races that won't even have their filing dates until June 7th. Lots of local positions, including all the boards of education. So we currently have 746 candidates and 428 races as of today. And the local has lots of room to expand if folks want to take that up. Next. I'm going to let you read this real quick. Just wanted to let you know that I've heard from a couple of candidates. One was very grateful for the way that that the questions were answered, nonpartisan, and for judicial candidates that they can't answer. There are some kinds of questions they can't answer. And then we've heard from both I guess Republicans and Democrats is that sometimes you know, they'd rather not participate in forums, or they'd rather not answer questions because the other side weaponizes it. And so this is one of the things that's difficult, but I think by asking these neutral questions and pushing candidates to try to answer, or at least put up their contact information, we can sort of be part of what helps to fix democracy. Next. Next. This is the last slide. So we definitely would love to have more local races. If you're interested at all, please put your name and email in the chat, and one of us will get in touch with you. Lexington is the pro for holding candidate forums, so ask Jen about that. The pressure campaign is, there's information about that. If you see races that are up and the people have not yet submitted their things, go ahead and contact them as an ordinary citizen and say, I'd like to know what you've got to say. Could you please respond to this? And then if the site should be useful for voters. So share what works if you've got a chance with other voters. There are a whole bunch of ways that you can help with the Vote 411 system. There's a bunch of data that needs to be gathered when a new place is started. We'd love to have new places. And so if you've got any inclination to do any help from now through November, we can find little jobs and big jobs. And we're sort of working to make it easy for like filling out the forms, filling out the spots in one spreadsheet. And I think we can do a lot to help get all those local places into a system. If you can come up with that amount, or maybe potentially there are grants, I don't know, but anyway, so that's it. And if you've got any questions, please stick them in the chat.
Thank you so much, Wida. Please utilize the chat for questions. We'll also have a little time at the end of the program for discussion. If you have questions or you want to contact any of the folks that have talked here tonight, you can also use our info@lwvky.org to send emails. We'll talk at the end of the presentation on some other resources. But I'd really encourage you to use those info@lwvky.org too. It's kind of a catch-all. There was one question from Becky, and I'm going to go ahead and read it to you and kind of keep it in your pocket for maybe kicking off our discussion. Is what is the cost of adding more locales to vote 411? And that can be our first question when we open it up for questions and discussion. Now, I would like to hear from the local chapter presidents, and I'm sure everyone else would too. We'll start off with Margie, then Mary's going to talk to us about Lexington. Mona will talk to us about Hopkinsville, and then Becky will talk to us about the Northern Kentucky League. So Margie, what's going on in Louisville?
Okay, thank you so much for having me. There is always a lot going on in Louisville, but I want to just give you an overview of what we've done and then what we're currently working on. The highlight for this year has been our public forums. We've had over 7 public forums focusing, on topics related to policing, housing, education, observer, local government, environment, healthcare. Healthcare implemented something new this year, and they implemented what was referred to as community conversations. And this was a little bit different than what we typically think of in terms of public forums, but it was quite successful. They did this via Zoom and just had a variety of topics almost every month where they just had general conversation with those that were in attendance. Our high school voter committees were very diligent and worked very hard on producing or creating videos that were to be used for to entice young voters and also to encourage them to not just to register for voting, but also to actually be better informed and to just become more civic minded. Our selection committee just completed its work for our annual President's Citizen Award. And so that's a process that we go through each year to pick someone in the community who epitomizes what we think of in terms of volunteer work in the community. Recently, we were gifted a piece of contemporary art by Vicki Bynum Dennis. This art will be formally presented at our annual meeting, but she designed or painted art that focused on the Kentucky suffragist. And again, it's very beautiful. Our annual meeting will be on June the 27th. 2 of our members are currently working with the Fraser Museum and also the Organization for Women to plan for our Women's History event, which will be held on August the 27th. And obviously, being the time of year that it is and the primary coming up, one of our major focuses, of course, is the mayoral forum. And that will be broadcast by WLKY on May the 10th from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're doing this in collaboration with Delta Sigma Theta sorority and the Alpha Kappa Alpha sororities in Louisville. And this also, in addition to of course, hosting the forum, but it also helps us to meet our goal of reaching out into community and to try to, reach out to community groups outside of the league as well, who have common interest. We're also working with the Courier Journal and the Louisville Bar Association to do to create a forum that informs the public about the judicial candidates. Many times we found that, especially related to judicial candidates, the public often does not understand what each of the court represents and and also how do you choose a good judge, and so this has been really exciting because it's something we're very committed to. Some of our challenges this year, and I don't know if you all wanted challenges or not, but some of the challenges that we've experienced, just like many organizations, is of course fundraising continues to be a major challenge for us. We've had, before when we first started, Fran asked about our search for an office manager. We've had difficulty retaining an office manager, and so we're currently looking for a new office manager. And also, one of our goals this year was to do more succession planning, and unfortunately we lost. We were not able to fill our second vice president position, and we lost our first vice president. COVID raised its ugly head again, and so what started out as an opportunity for face-to-face interactions, we were able to pull it off, but it did impact our attendance at some of these various events. And so that pretty much covers what we've done so far this year.
Thank you so much, Margie. You guys sound very, very busy. Mary, can you tell us what's going on in Lexington?
I'd be glad to. Thank you. I'm Mary Hughes. I'm co-president of the League of Women Voters of Lexington, along with Jen Jackson. We've had a very successful year in Lexington in spite of the lingering effects of the pandemic. A special note is our membership increase, which has brought us new members who have used their skills in various volunteer actions. Our community forums have continued on a monthly basis via Zoom and have ranged from redistricting, ranked choice voting, One Lexington, which is a program of our urban county government created to keep youth and young adults involved in activities which may prevent violent crime, How to Be an Informed Voter, and 2 forums celebrating Black History Month and Women's History Month. To assist voters in the upcoming primary and November elections, we have recorded candidate forums and have updated our vote411.org site to include candidates' information and answers to questions created by both League members and the general public. Our recorded candidate forums are available for viewing on our website, lwvlexington.com, or on Outreach Circle. Without many in-person voter registration events, we have used our website, monthly voter, and social media to give up-to-date information on both new voter registration and how to update present voter registration. Those of you who would like an overview of the newest voting laws can access our recorded community forum of April 2022, featuring Fayette County Clerk, Mr. Don Blevins Jr. His presentation is also available for viewing on our website or an Outreach Circle. Coming on Thursday, May 26th, and I hope many of you will join us from 7 to 8 p.m. via Zoom, will be our last community forum of this year. It will be a first-person recollection of the World War II event, Kristallnacht, which occurred in 1938 in Nazi Germany. Our speaker, Mr. John Rosenberg of Prestonsburg, Kentucky, was a child during Kristallnacht and witnessed the destruction of Jewish synagogues, businesses, and homes, and the injuring and killing of Jewish citizens by Nazi soldiers. This is a program you won't want to miss. You can register for a Zoom link on our website or an Outreach Circle. Last of all, and again, I hope all of you can join us, we are co-sponsoring an event on Friday, June 10th, 2022 at 5 p.m. at Ashland Henry Clay's home in Lexington, at which the National Collaborative for Women's History Sites and other community groups will dedicate the Pomeroy Suffragist Marker honoring Madeline McDowell Breckinridge, Kentucky and national suffragist who started the Kentucky League of Women Voters. So please join us in person or on Facebook Live. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. Your program sounds fantastic. I know that I am going to go to the website and register right away.
Right.
That sounds like something I don't want to miss.
Right. Thank you.
Mona, I know Hopkinsville has been extremely busy lately. Can you tell us all what's been going on?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me. So we have been very busy with our candidate forums. We are able to have them in person and then have Facebook Live feed as well as local Spectrum channel. We were very fortunate that all the primary Republicans agreed to attend, and the feedback we're getting is very positive. So we're hoping that the general election will not see any issues at all. There were some technical challenges that we're taking note of, and we will address those when we get to the general election. And we're looking at maybe expanding the availability of the live feeds as well as recorded feeds for that. We are looking forward to a candidate luncheon where we'll be on May 13th. And we've usually have had that as a very large fundraiser, but due to COVID reasons, catering costs, we may be looking at a little bit more of a challenging position there. But so far, we're starting to get some RSVPs, and the candidates will speak just a few minutes. And really, it's a meet and greet opportunity for folks to approach and talk to the primary candidates. Voter registration activities have been actually quite busy also. We've had 2 in-person events this month. We have one tomorrow where our local Sportsplex recreation facility is hosting a number of regional seniors, high school seniors, and we will be there to educate them on registering, and we'll have some laptops, and they're more phone savvy than some of us, and so we're gonna trying to work with them. We'll have summer activities. We always participate in a local event here, Summer Salute, where we will once again have a table and information. So we're looking, we see the successes of our forums this time. We're going to try and redo them and really work hard at expanding questions and participation in the general election.
Thank you, Mona. I'm always so impressed by everything that Hopkinsville does. Even though I belong to the Hopkinsville League, because of COVID, I haven't been able to see everyone for some time. So it'll be great to see everybody in person again. Thank you again so much. Becky, definitely not the least of our leagues, but the newest, and we are all very excited to hear what's going on with the Northern Kentucky League.
Well, we continue to learn from Louisville and Lexington and Hopkinsville, and get support from our state mentors, state league mentors. So thank you all for helping us to learn. So our focuses through this summer will be in judicial candidate forums for the general election. That's what we're working on, and voter registration. So our chairperson of the voter registration committee couldn't be with us tonight, but she has developed a connection which is going to be very beneficial for us in Northern Kentucky with the Greater Cincinnati Voter Collaborative. And they are helping us create materials that we can use to distribute when we're doing voter registration. I think it's something that we would probably, we might want to explore how we can use some money to get materials printed and so forth, but that's, you know, another topic. There's also an effort that's underway for us to get into the high schools. So we're targeting our 3 major counties in Northern Kentucky are Kenton, Boone, and Campbell. So the goal is to get into at least one of the county schools in each of those counties to do high school voter registration. So again, we're taking cues and learning lessons from all the other local leagues, and we appreciate that you're all willing to help us learn from how you have done things and are doing things.
Thank you so much, Becky. That was one of the goals I hope that we accomplished of our meeting tonight, is to let everybody get firsthand information of what's going on with each of the local leagues. Kentucky's a big state and we're all dispersed everywhere. So thank you for letting us know what's going on in Northern Kentucky, which seems so far away from me, which actually it is, being down here in the western part. So it was so great to have that feeling of closeness tonight. I did say we were going to have this meeting for 30 minutes, but I blame it on the wine and we just went longer. This has just been a great opportunity for us to come together as a community. I'd like to leave you with some resources that you can take advantage of, which all our website, LWVKY.org, is a great place and a great way to stay connected and to find out what's going on. Also, our voter is now coming out again quarterly. If it's hard to say, how do you know what I didn't get? Well, it just, the voter went out in March, so you can expect it, in about 3 months. So if you're not receiving it, please let us know. We have had some issues with the voter going to spam. We've been trying to work on it, but if we don't hear from you, then we're not exactly sure what we can do to help you get it. If you're not getting it, you can send us an email at newsletter@lwvky.org. That can help us identify you and maybe work with you. You can also sign up for our newsletter if for some reason you're feel you should be getting it as a member, but you can sign up again through the website to see if that would help. Also, we've talked a lot about Outreach Circle. Jen has put some information on how to join Outreach Circle. You can also go to the front page of our website and join that way. I encourage you to read One Voice, and I've included the link here on the PowerPoint, and I'll send it out. It really is our handbook for how we administer the league here and how we work with national. So with that, I will thank everyone for coming, but I would also like a chance, if you have questions or just want to give us quick feedback, to unmute yourself and meet with the rest of your league community. So I will take silence as a way that we need to say goodbye and everyone's ready to go. Thank you all so much for coming. And this was our first run. I would very much appreciate any feedback that you have. If you could send us something at info@lwvky.org. It would be very helpful in helping us plan our next session. Thanks to all the speakers and thanks for all the hard work everyone does. Have a great evening. Skål.
Oh.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.